Good evening and welcome to your primetime news with Newsfirst here on TV1. Thank you very much for joining us. As always, we've got the very latest stories from here at home and around the world lined up for you today. But first, as always, let's have a look at your
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Steps taken to ensure no shortage in essential goods. Finance Minister tells President. Sri Lanka pays $35 million for diesel tanker after a delay of 2 days. $38,000 paid as demerit charges. Long queues for diesel in several areas. Buses run out of fuel. Transportation sector affected. Economic crisis debated in Parliament.
Reload ක්‍රමයට තෙල් ගන්නකොට අපිට පෙට්‍රල් ගහන්න වෙන්නේ ෂෙඩ් එකට ගිහිල්ලා සැෂේ ක්‍රමයට තමයි
පිස්සන් රජ උනත් එකයි රජුන් පිස්සෝ උනත් එකයි ඊයේ නැවට ඩොලර් මිලියන 36ක් හොයාගන්න බැරුව රටේ මිනිසුන්ට දීපු වේදනාව අපි දැක්කා.
Samagi Jana Balawegya moves court against surcharge tax bill. Protest opposite Presidential Secretariat opposing illegal entry of Indian fishermen. Will the Adams Bridge be declared as India's national heritage? India's Supreme Court to hear a plea. Tensions intensify between Russia and Ukraine. US imposes sanctions on Russia.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Welcome to your news. Now, in your lead story for the day, Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa has informed President Gotabaya Rajapaksa that steps have been taken to ensure that there is no shortage of essential goods. This was during a special meeting with officials at the Presidential Secretariat earlier today.
During a meeting, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa said he expects all state institutions to remain committed to serve the general public. The meeting was held with state officials to discuss the government's future plan. The president stressed the need for governors and the secretaries of ministries, provinces and districts and high-ranking state officials to provide leadership in these efforts.
Many officers want to work. What is important is to get the work done. I know that officers work properly when they are being given the opportunity to lead or when they are being encouraged and advised properly and praised for their work. This encouragement should follow from the top tiers. This is why I decided to personally visit government entities and encourage these officers.
The president further emphasized that all institutions under the central government and the provincial councils should operate under a single state policy when performing their duties.
Now, meanwhile, the shortage of fuel has affected public transportation services in the country. A state-owned bus had ran out of fuel in Kaluthara today.
A state-owned bus that was travelling from Colombo to Mathura had ran out of diesel midway through its journey at the Kaluthara town today. The All Ceylon Bus Owners Association says private buses only have fuel that is enough for 2 days.
Private bus owners face difficulties in purchasing diesel in the last couple of days. We can only run our buses for 2 more days. A bus can store between 160 and 200 litres of diesel. We can only run for 2 days using this quantity of fuel. We are requesting to prioritize buses when pumping diesel.
The transportation of goods has also been affected due to the shortage of diesel.
Super diesel තරමක් දුරට තිබෙනවා. නමුත්
Super diesel is available to a certain extent. However, it is difficult to operate with it completely. There is a huge price difference. We held discussions with the Director General of Customs and Chairman of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority. There are fuel stations run by the government. We have requested them to consider our industry as an essential service and prioritize our vehicles when supplying fuel.
The shortage of diesel has affected several areas at present. Long queues were seen at filling stations today amidst a shortage of petrol. The filling station in Aluthwala in Gaul was closed this morning. Long queues of people were seen at filling stations in Ambalangoda today. Diesel or kerosene were not available at a filling station in Baddegama. Most filling stations were closed in Mathura today. Long queues were seen at a filling station in Kalutharu today. Diesel wasn't available at filling stations at the Bandarabilla town. A tense situation arose at a filling station in Nuwara today. The scuffle broke out, claiming that the filling station was selling diesel by prioritizing people carrying cans.
Now in this backdrop, Energy Minister Udaya Gammanpila has admitted that there is a shortage of diesel in the country. This was during an exchange of views in Parliament on the fuel crisis in the country at present.
During yesterday's emergency cabinet meeting, the Finance Secretary informed the Bank of Ceylon to pay for the diesel consignment. We have begun unloading diesel from that tanker. There is a petrol tanker at sea as well. During yesterday's special cabinet meeting, the Finance Minister promised to provide us the foreign exchange required for this. Therefore, we believe that we will be able to unload the fuel quickly. It's true that there is a shortage of diesel in the country. We could only release a limited stock of fuel to the market in the last 5 days because we couldn't unload diesel from the tanker. Therefore, there was a shortage of diesel. That is true.
What is your view on revising fuel prices?
The cost of fuel in the global market had risen by 38% from December 20th. However, Sri Lanka didn't increase fuel prices. After a lengthy discussion took place in the cabinet, we decided to avoid increasing fuel prices.
Can we secure an uninterrupted supply of fuel for the next 3 months? There are fuel stocks globally, but do we have enough money in terms of dollars or rupees to purchase it? Settle the freight charges immediately. Otherwise, we will have to pay more than $100 for each barrel.
The former Prime Minister is correct. We expect fuel prices to increase in the global market. We expected the cost of a crude oil barrel to hit $100 in mid-March. However, it happened in February. Therefore, we now believe that the cost of crude oil will reach $115 by mid-March. I wish to tell the former Prime Minister that we have not turned away any ship. We have always made payments and unloaded the fuel consignments. We have requested long-term loans from several countries. We have made these requests to the leaders of those countries. We have made arrangements to hold a meeting on March 15th with the ambassadors of all oil-producing countries to grant us fuel on a long-term credit. It is a challenge to allocate funds to import fuel at this moment.
The former Prime Minister questioned about how the payments are being made. Yesterday, Basil Rajapaksa had agreed to pay in dollars. From where is this money? You would not be criticised if the payments were made earlier. You are being criticised for this. If the parliament has been informed about it, where is the money? As the finance minister isn't reporting this, he is releasing funds out of his own will.
I feel that the Prime Minister, Finance Minister or the State Minister must deliver a responsible statement to Parliament on the problems in the country. I wish to tell you that a massive crisis has arisen due to the power cuts and the shortage of fuel. Sometimes you might not be able to understand that when sitting in this air-conditioned chamber. But we wish to tell you that there are no dollars in the country. There is no electricity. There is no petrol. There is no diesel, there is no kerosene. There are queues for milk powder. The society is facing a disaster. When we were in power, the opposition at that time said the government must resign if power cuts are imposed thrice. They said that the chairman must be sent home after the first power cut. The minister must be sacked after the second power cut and the government must resign after the third power cut. For more than 2 weeks, I haven't received an answer from the finance minister on the economic crisis. This is a joke.
ප්‍රශ්නයට මුදල් අමාත්‍යවරයා වෙත යොමු කරපු ප්‍රශ්නයට දැන් සති දෙකකට වැඩි කාලයක් මේ රටේ ආර්ථික අර්බුදය පිළිබඳ උත්තරයක් නැහැ. මේක හරි විහිළුවක්.
The cabinet yesterday agreed to pay $35 million for a 37,500 metric ton consignment of diesel that reached the country. $38,000 were paid as demurrage charges to the ship due to a 2-day delay.
$35 million were allocated for an emergency purchase of 37,500 metric tons of diesel. A litre of crude oil has been imported at 117 rupees. When the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation releases this to the fuel stations, it will be sold at 129 rupees along with other costs. This is the highest rate. They have paid about $93 for each barrel. $35 million is paid for 37,500 metric tons. After importing at $93, it would cost 129 rupees to sell a litre along with other costs, but that is being sold at 177 rupees. Diesel that can be sold at 114 rupees is sold at 121 rupees. People are paying 177 rupees for fuel that can be bought at 117 rupees. Does the government have the right to pillage the people?
Why is the government purchasing fuel from tankers? Sri Lanka usually awards a foreign company with a tender to supply fuel on a long-term basis. Under this system, payments for the fuel consignment had to be made after 30, 90 or 180 days. However, fuel is now being purchased from tankers. On the 27th of December last year, the Energy Minister informed the Cabinet that foreign banks had not accepted letters of credit issued by Sri Lanka. This was after Sri Lanka's long-term credit rating was downgraded at that time. The minister had said that Sri Lanka had not received bids when it called for tenders to supply fuel on a long term. The Energy Minister had then sought Cabinet approval over 3 tenders, which are part of the procurement mechanism that is in effect. In his Cabinet paper, the Energy Minister had sought permission to pay in advance for 1 tender and to make payments on site for the other 2 tenders.
This was an emergency purchase. We remember the minister saying that there is a 6-month long-term purchase plan. If it's a long-term plan that includes a 180-day credit basis, then there is no need to make the payments immediately. To continue this formula, they increased fuel prices at midnight while saying that there are enough fuel stocks and then forced people to stay in queues. Only 2 or 3 companies are supplying fuel to the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. But in 2007, there are about 30 companies that supplied fuel to us. The fuel tanker for which payments were made had reached the country from Singapore. When a procurement process is completed in 35 days, no one has time to submit competitive bids. Only companies that have ships can immediately send it. That is why there are only a few companies that are supplying fuel. This includes PetroChina and Vitol. One company has established another company under a different name, but they both share the same fax number. They are looting the people's money. The Minister of Power didn't show enthusiasm to import fuel, but to finish up the hydropower sources and to purchase fuel on an emergency basis to generate electricity through thermal power plants. The minister left the Ceylon Electricity Board helpless, despite knowing that they required furnace oil and naphtha in January and February. The government and the CPC must reveal the funds spent for this.
The Ceylon Electricity Board has taken steps to impose a power cut for over 4 hours today due to the lack of sufficient diesel and furnace oil. Groups A, B and C will experience power cuts for 4 hours and 40 minutes. All other groups will experience power cuts for 4 hours and 30 minutes. The Ceylon Electricity Board said this situation has arisen due to the lack of sufficient fuel for power plants that generate 541 megawatts of power. To find out what time your local area will experience a power cut, visit www.newsfirst.lk. Meanwhile, the CEB has announced that power cuts will be imposed from Colombo 1 to 15 from tomorrow. CEB spokesperson Andrew Navamani said the power cut schedule for the areas between Colombo 1 to 15 is to be decided. The Power Consumers Association held a protest at the Aliagoda Hospital Junction against the power cuts today.
It will not make a difference regardless of how many decisions this government make. A mafia in the CEB is making decisions to run diesel power plants at this time of the year. Our renewable energy system has completely collapsed due to the fraudulent agreements made with the companies that run these diesel power plants. The mafia of engineers will never allow power to be generated through solar power in the next 20 to 30 years. We urge the government to get rid of the mafia who fill their own pockets by obtaining commissions through these diesel power plants and entering into deals with these companies that run these diesel power plants.
Multiple views on the status quo of the country were expressed during the adjournment debate in Parliament today.
The central bank governor acts as if he is a know-it-all when it comes to the economy. What is he saying now? He has advised banks not to lend money to the CPC, stating that the banking sector must be protected. Is he trying to hint of a possible collapse within the banking sector? He resigned from his ministerial position, took up the role of central bank governor and presented a 6-month plan. He has now started dictating terms to banks on lending money to the CPC for it to fund the import of fuel that is essential to run the country. The situation is unstable now. If you have fuel in your vehicle, you can go about your activities. If not, you will be stranded on the road. When the government is obtaining fuel through a reload method, we will have to purchase fuel through a sachet system. This shows that it is not only Sir who has failed. He failed a long time ago. This failed vision has pushed our country into a massive crisis.
Instead of
realizing the difficulties of the nation and assisting to address them, you are enraged and send out battle cries saying, "We would handle this better if we were in power." The people of this country must understand that the opposition is attempting to blame anyone at this point to secure power. Economics is something that changes every day. My students have not been paying attention. What a surprise. Economic experts nowadays aren't accepting the MB equals PT theory. If they are knowledgeable, they would not speak this way. They won't act like fools if they knew. They must act as gentlemen. That is why we say a fool becoming a king and a king becoming a fool is all the same. Do not act like fools. Are they leaders?
He
did not answer timely issues. Our country is famous as a nation whose people throw fecal matter at one another. Aren't you ashamed? We speak of the past, but during this year's UNHRC sessions, we will be known as the country that slings fecal matter. Is this the vision of prosperity?
The Yahapalane government got us in this rut. Accept it. As soon as President Gotabaya Rajapaksa came into power, COVID-19 presented itself to the world. The first wave was controlled well, but our economy collapsed. Production dropped. Revenue streams dried up. What is left to pay? Sovereign bonds worth $13 billion they purchased in the open market.
We saw how they burdened the people to source $36 million to pay for the vessel. That is the sad state of our country. There were ample dollars and funds. Roadmaps of 6 months and 3 months were introduced, but today we can see the crisis the country is in. let's face reality. They have curtailed the purchasing ability of the people to pay off debts because we are short of dollars. The people are deprived of milk powder, medicine, fuel, gas and electricity so that loans can be paid. The CBSL governor revealed 2 days ago that there are no more dollars. Similarly, he will have to say that there are no more rupees. That is the day our country will truly collapse and go bankrupt.
රුපියල් නෑ ආණ්ඩුවට දෙන්න කියලා. මෙන්න මෙදාට තමයි රට සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම බිඳ වැටෙන බංකොලොත් භාවයේ ඉමට වැටෙන තත්ත්වයේ තියෙන්නේ.
The trading at the Colombo Stock Exchange was halted twice today. This is the third time that the CSE trading was halted this week. Market analysts pointed out that concerns arising from the surcharge tax bill that affects many companies had caused a plunge in the stock market. They added that the drop in earnings of companies due to power cuts was also a reason for the drop in the stock exchange. The CSE's ASPI closed 3.23% down and the S&P SL20 index closed 4.29% down at the end of the day. The daily turnover was 4.5 billion rupees.
The Ceylon Chamber of Commerce says the government can give away some shares of state-owned enterprises to the private sector. They said this would be vital for economic growth. In an article, the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce said the government should categorize state-owned enterprises based on their strategic importance. The article added that the government can sell significant stakes for non-strategic state-owned enterprises and release smaller stakes for strategic entities. The CCC said this approach would still allow the government to have control over state-owned enterprises and will avoid the complete privatization of these entities. The article pointed out that the financial burden of SOEs on the government is substantial and detrimental to the economy. It added that giving away shares would therefore help the government alleviate this burden. The Ceylon Chamber of Commerce also called for financial discipline at the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, Sri Lankan Airlines and the Sri Lanka Transport Board. They said 94% of the total losses from SCOs in the first 7 months of last year were from these three entities.
We'll be right back after this short commercial break.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Register today for a Zoom workshop on new technology in SINHALA.
On the 24th of February at 3 p.m. Engineering techniques to build the world.
Register by 0777 600 20.
Organized by Slit Institute.
TechBus.
Main sponsor.
Slit Knowledge University, challenging convention and redefining education.
Welcome back to your news. Now, the Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, has left the island to Vatican this morning. The Archbishop will meet His Holiness Pope Francis, the head of the Catholic Church, during the visit.
With the United Nations Human Rights Council sessions are right around the corner, Amnesty International has called for the release of a Sri Lankan student and a YouTuber who are being held under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. Amnesty International has called for the release of 23-year-old computer engineering student Imran Iman. He has been under the Prevention of Terrorism Act for more than 2 years without a charge. In a report, the human rights watchdog also sought the release of 34-year-old YouTube channel director Divanya Muhundan. She has been detained under the PTA for more than 10 months. The report added that these cases demonstrate how state authorities use the PTA to suppress minorities and stifle dissent. Amnesty International said the two detainees must be tried in court in line with international standards if there is credible evidence. It stressed that the PTA must be repealed and that those detained under the law should have regular access to lawyers on a confidential basis and their family.
Now, the Samagi Jana Balawegaya General Secretary Ranjit Madhuwa Bandara filed a petition with the Supreme Court today. The petitioner has requested court to declare that the one-time surcharge tax bill violates the Constitution. The Attorney General has been named as a respondent to the petition.
In his petition, Samagi Jana Balawegaya General Secretary Ranjit Madhuwa Bandara requested court to issue an order stating that the surcharge tax bill must be passed with a 2/3 majority and a referendum. The bill seeking to impose a retrospective one-time surcharge tax of 25% on people and companies with a taxable income over 2 billion rupees for 2020 and 2021 was presented to Parliament yesterday. The petitioner had pointed out that the bill proposes to impose the tax on the Employees Provident Fund and the Employees Trust Fund. He had argued that the bill is completely in violation of the constitution.
Now, fishermen from Sri Lanka's north and south held a protest in Colombo against the illegal entry of Indian fishermen into Sri Lankan waters.
Trade union representatives of National Fisheries Cooperation Movement, All Ceylon Fisheries Federation and several trade unions attended the protest. They demanded officials to create an environment that is conducive to engage in their livelihoods without any issues.
If the government manages the fisheries industry properly, we can earn dollars by exporting fisheries products. We will be able to resolve the economic issues in our country through that. But if Indian fishermen are allowed to fish in this way, we will have to import fish as well. Although Indian fishermen are earning revenue for India using our marine resources, India provides this money to us through loans.
Fishermen from the southern region were also present.
We can apprehend Indian boats using the Navy, but those arrests are not being carried out. Our rulers have become subservient to India. Isn't the foreign minister ashamed of saying that there must be cordial ties between the two countries? Are they trying to make the fishermen in the north scapegoats simply because they need to maintain cordial ties? We wish to tell the fisheries minister, the foreign minister, the prime minister and the minister to avoid begging for dollars out of greed by making fishermen in the north as scapegoats.
A few fishermen involved in the protest opposite the presidential secretariat met with an additional secretary afterwards. The fishermen also met with the fisheries minister at the ministry.
We discussed several matters. The main focus was on bottom trawling carried out by Indian fishermen. We discussed this with the president and brought it under control. That problem is over. It is over for now.
India's Supreme Court has said it would hear a petition on the 9th of March seeking to declare the Adams Bridge as an Indian National Heritage Monument. The petition filed by India's Bharatiya Janata Party leader Subramaniam Swamy has been taken up by a judge bench led by Chief Justice N.W. Ramana. The Adams Bridge, a 30-kilometer long chain of limestone shoals located in the Sea of Sri Lanka, runs from Thalemana to India's town of Dhanushkodi. It is also known as Ram Setu or Rama's Bridge. Sri Lanka and India share half each of the 16 limestone shoals that form the Adams Bridge, which is located in Sri Lankan waters. Subramaniam Swamy had initially moved court in 2007 against the Setu Samudram project aimed at creating an 83-kilometer long deep water channel linking Mannar with Pork Strait. The Adams Bridge is no ordinary chain of limestones and has caught the attention of foreign nations. During their recent visits, the Chinese ambassador as well as the Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka visiting the Adams Bridge during their visits to the north of Sri Lanka bears testament to its importance. Therefore, can this portion of Sri Lanka's territory be declared as an Indian National Heritage Monument as requested by Subramaniam Swamy? Wouldn't that be a threat to Sri Lanka's sovereignty? Subramaniam Swamy, who visited Sri Lanka recently, had tweeted, and I quote, "What stops Modi from declaring the Ram Setu as a National Heritage Monument?" unquote. However, this tweet hardly drew any response from those holding responsible positions in Sri Lanka. But this silence seems to have come at a bigger cost. Sri Lanka's national sovereignty is now at threat as attempts are being taken to declare a portion of our own country's territory as an Indian National Heritage Monument.
Russian president puts intelligence chief on the spot.
Now your international news, a story that has had the whole world on edge. The National Security Council of Ukraine has decided to declare a state of emergency. Following a meeting of the council, top security officials said that the state of emergency would be imposed in all regions except Donetsk and Luhansk. Meanwhile, Ukraine has also urged citizens living in Russia, estimated to be up to 3 million people, to leave immediately. Newsfirst's Azra Azan has more.
US President Joe Biden has imposed many sanctions against Russia. What led to this situation? This is mainly after Russia recognized two breakaway regions of Ukraine as independent states. And this is why the Ukrainian president has requested its Western allies to impose more sanctions on Russia to stop this aggression.
Today, in response to Russia's admission that it will not withdraw its forces from Belarus, I have authorized additional movements of U.S. forces and equipment already stationed in Europe to strengthen our Baltic allies, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Let me be clear, these are totally defensive moves on our part.
Other countries, including the United Kingdom and Japan, have also imposed sanctions on Russian banks and MPs as the crisis escalates. It came after Russian politicians authorized President Vladimir Putin to send troops into two rebel-held parts of eastern Ukraine. Russia has recognized the regions as independent, a move Ukraine said attacks its sovereignty. UN Chief Antonio Guterres has dismissed Russia's plans to send troops to eastern Ukraine as quote-unquote not peacekeepers at all, as Western nations imposed stinging sanctions against Moscow, including measures that would aim to starve the country of financing. Russia's military has not commented, and it is not clear if any Russian troops have yet been sent to eastern Ukraine. The Ukrainian military said it had recorded 96 incidents of shelling by separatists over the past 24 hours compared with 84 a day earlier. It said separatist forces used heavy artillery, mortars and grade rocket systems. Meanwhile, President Vladimir Putin has pressed one of his top spy chiefs during a meeting with Russia's top security officials on recognition for rebel-held regions of Ukraine.
Согласился бы с предложением Николая Платоновича о том, что нашим, так сказать, западным партнерам можно дать последний шанс с тем, чтобы предложить им в кратчайшие сроки заставить Киев пойти на мир и выполнить Минские соглашения. В противном случае мы должны принять то решение, о котором сегодня говорится.
Что значит в противном случае? Вы предлагаете начать переговорный процесс?
Нет, я...
Или признавать суверенитет их?
А я
Говорите прямо.
Я поддержу предложение о признании.
Поддержу или поддерживаю? Говорите прямо, Сергей.
Поддерживаю предложение.
Так и скажите, да или нет.
Да? Поддерживаю предложение о вхождении Донецкой и Луганской народных республик в состав Российской Федерации.
Да, мы об этом не говорим, мы этого не обсуждаем. Мы говорим о признании их независимости или нет.
Да, я поддерживаю предложение о признании независимости.
Хорошо, пожалуйста, садитесь. Спасибо. Владимир Александрович.
The situation between Russia and Ukraine is now being compared with the situation between China and Taiwan. They do not say that these are two similar incidents, but what they're saying is that the Russian and Ukraine situation could be used as an example when it comes to the situation between China and Taiwan.
Speaking to News First earlier, Dr. Manik Wakumbura said that China may invade Taiwan if the United States tries to take action against Russia with its allies.
Definitely yes, because what we see is the modern day events of Cold War time. Now during Cold War time we had experienced a large number of toxic wars where you see enemy parties confronting superpowers take a side of small countries. They invest on militarily, they invest on economically to fight against each other's interests.
Now, a tense situation arose at the Ridhigama Development Committee meeting chaired by Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna MP Manjula Disanayaka today. This was when views were expressed on a project to supply drinking water to houses in the Rantikanna from a main water source in Ridhigama. Well, that brings an end to your news for today. Thank you very much for joining us. On behalf of our interpreter, Taraka Gabriel, our producer, Senta Senanayaka, I have been Deshan Gonawala for the News First team. Don't forget, if you missed out on any of our stories, you can catch us on our social media, on our Instagram, Facebook and Twitter sites, as well as our award-winning website, www.newsfirst.lk. We leave you with the scene from Ridhigama. Have a great night. God bless.
This wasn't a project that we began recently. Let's move forward with the assistance of technical experts from the Water Board and the Irrigation Department into this.
Inform farmers associations that there is a project like this. No one informed us about this. The villagers will be divided over this. It may even cause the death of people. Think about that. Inform us in writing that this project won't be implemented. We will then accept it.
This was a situation that arose when officials had left the meeting hall.